Hey YouTube, it's Taki with TaqiTech. So here we are with episode 18. We're focused on Model 6. We're going to load the task array today. What I've done is I have pasted the code into Microsoft Word in hopes that it will be a little bit more readable. We have our integers here. We have row count, task count. We have an old array that I'm not going to be using anymore. Didn't have to end up using that. We have task period number, iTask, integer, iMeet as an integer. So these are basically to increment. I don't think I'm using some of these, so some of these will be refactored out. iBreak, I'm not using, and then iArray, I'm not sure. We'll get there as we start explaining some of the code here. And then I think X was just as a counter. And some of these I should have went through these before I started. Sorry about that, guys. And some of these I'm not using at this point. All right, so basically I was having a lot of problems because I was looking at the model. Let's take a look at the model here. So model 6 here. I was looking at the model, and then I was doing all these calculations here, and I would accidentally leave it on this page. And then the code would try to read rows off of this page as opposed to this page where it needed to be on Superstar. So basically, used to clicking on Excel there. So basically, the very first line of code is just saying, hey, make sure you have the right spreadsheet selected. Next is a function called load meeting times that we talked about in the last video. So this is episode 18. Check out episode 17, I believe, and then you will see everything you need to know about that function called, or that subroutine called load meeting times. And then basically what I do is I count all the tasks with a percentage, and then use ubound to subtract the scheduled task. Okay, so I'm counting all of the tasks that have a percentage, and what that means is I'm going down this whole row here in the counting tasks, and I think, let me see here, if I'm correct, we may have covered that in another video. Sorry if this pops up. Yeah, I think it's here we talk about that. But basically we're going to start with row 14 and we keep going row 15, row 16, row 17, row 18, basically a do loop. That's a design pattern that I've used a lot here, and basically we're just going down the rows, the rows in this column here, and then we stop when we get to an empty, or we don't do what we need to do. We don't follow any instructions. We get to the empty and we move to the next one, or we stop at 21. So we count our number of tasks. So for here we got down a little bit here, 7 tasks. And what we would do then is, let me get Word back up here. So we'd have 7 tasks, and we would add that to our meeting times. So we're going to have the 7 tasks, and even though the meeting times have a percentage in it, we have to realize what's going to happen is that, let's say for example task 45, that's going to be split, and that's going to count as 2, or it's going to count extra. So that will split out. And then I think there'll be an extra time here too when we split this out. So we actually need to have, let me see here, so we had 7, so that would equal 9. And you could see I was playing around with it here. I have 0, so this might be something that I need to keep an eye on as we start working with different models to see if it's really working correctly. Let me just take a look at the array real quick here. Get rid of this, and let's take a look at this. So I mean, we do have 9 rows in the array, so I'm thinking that 9 is probably correct. Considering that we're starting with 0. So I mean, I probably put a lot of thought and testing into it when I wrote it. I can't recall at this point. This has been code that's been written over probably maybe 2 weeks, and it's not consistent. It wasn't like written in 3 days. It was written a day here, a couple days break thinking about it, or didn't have time to get to it, and then I'd write it. Okay, so now on to the next line of code here. We set up our array with rows and 2 columns, multi-dimensional array here. We start a row count with 14 because we want to start with row 14 on the Superstar spreadsheet. And this is the quote-unquote row counter for the array. So of course we're going to start with 0 because I always use my arrays on base 0. I don't change the base in VBA just because array is something that you can use in a lot of different programming languages. I'm not sure if they have a base 1 in different programming languages, and I think it's good to start thinking about arrays. Every time I've used an array in, let's say, Java or in PHP, I always used it as a base 0. I wasn't even aware of base 1 until maybe about a year or two ago when I was looking in the VBA a little bit further. And then I was like, wow, you could change it to base 1 where basically your arrays start with 1 instead of 0, but I don't think it's good practice. So my arrays always start with 0. And this is another counter in an array that is used here. And I'm just going to highlight this just in case I ever look at this again. All right, so that's another note there. All right, so now basically what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to go through the row, start with 14, go down to 21, and we're going to do that until we hit the row count equals 21, or if we're taking a look at column C here, is empty. So if it's empty at 19, we're done, according to this loop. And this is what I'm going to call the master loop here. This is what is kind of running the whole code in this subroutine. All right. So now we're looking at the length of the meeting time and comparing it to the length of the task. So I believe that's right here. So we start off with our first meeting time. It's 3 hours minus the break, which is going to give us 270. So we start off by comparing 270 to 168. And we're saying if that 270 is greater than 168, then we're going to do all these instructions here. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the 168 from the meeting time. So I'm going to bring back up my little array picture here. And we subtract the 168 from 270. And what we get in return is 102. And then we write, we're going to take a look at the percentage to see how many minutes 41 has, and that's going to be 168. So we put that 168 here into this row. We're going to look at column D. So going back to the spreadsheet here, column D would be right here. It's going to give us the task code. So we're looking at column D, and we're going to put that task code in here. So if you take a look at this, column D will give us 41, and then we subtract this 168 from the meeting time. We're going to get our 102. So now that meeting time, see if you look here, the meeting times, so there's this iMeet here again, so we're still looking at 0 because iMeet still equals 0. We're setting that to 162. So meeting time should have 2 rows, 0 and a 1. The first one is 170, the other one is 108. We're going to keep on subtracting from that 270 until it's gone. Then we start looking at the second one, 108. So we're going to look at our next task period number, or we're going to increment that array by 1 now because we filled all the values in that first row of the array. And then this is an else statement, so we're not going to look at any of this code at this point. And then we increase our row count, and we're on to row 15 now. And then we run up to row 15 here, and we start again with our do loop. And there, of course, there's something there, so we're going to be executing row 15. And now let's take a look at our picture. We're going to be comparing 102. No, I'm sorry, the total of 145, which is 168. We're going to compare that to 102. So now we're going to go into our else statement because 102 is less than 168, of course. So now we're into our else. And this is when we're going to split it. And what I mean by split it, let's get the picture out again. So here we have a 45 here, in the second element of the array, or second dimension, or however you want to call it. And here you have task 3 of the array. Here's 45 again. So we got to split it, and we got to put that 60 in between, because this is our first meeting time. So here we go. So now we're on task period. So this should be 1 0 1 0. We're going to put the 102 in here. Let's see here. Oh, I did a little trick here, because basically I said, okay, whatever's left from the meeting time, that's what we're going to put in here. We're not even going to do any math. We're not even going to convert the percentage or anything. We're going to put that 102 here, and then we go and put the 45. Then we increase our element of the array next. Now we're on task number 2, and then we're going to say task number 2 is equal to whatever's left in the meeting time. No, it's gonna, I'm sorry, we're gonna look at our meeting times array. And let's see here, hold on. So we're gonna look at our meeting times array. We're gonna put 60 there and our 98, because that's in the meeting times array. That's not, okay, hold on. I'm so sorry, guys. I forgot the meeting times has 3 columns. Okay, so now we're going to officially look at that second column for the first time in the meeting times array, and that will have our 60 minutes, and then that third column will have the 98. Sorry, this is hard stuff. It's very complicated, so you got to walk through it a couple times, I guess, if you're going to explain it. All right. So now we got that done. Now we've entered our meeting, our scheduled task, so to speak. Now we're going to subtract that from the next meeting time. So now we've entered that meeting. This is now equal to 0 here. So we have hit 270. Now we're going to look at 3 hours here. We're getting at 3 hours between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. right here. So that's where we're going to get our second 3 hours from. And then we're going to subtract the break that's in between, 12 minutes. So we would have 180, 30 by 60. Subtract the 12 minutes, that gives us 168. Here's the 168 here. We're starting to count right away. We're going to subtract the 60 from it, from that scheduled meeting, because that 168 starts right away. As soon as that 270, the first 5 hours is over, we're going to start right away going from 11, because we initially started looking at it from, let's see here, first 5 hours was from 6 a.m. right up here, time in 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. And as soon as that 11 a.m. hits, we're going to hit that next 3 hours. Okay, so our next 3 hours, it starts right here, subtracting 60 from it. So we get our 108, and that's what we're doing right here. Basically, I just put a conditional on it, and I can't remember why I put the conditional on it, guys. So bear with me here. There will be other models. We'll be running through this again. I'm sure if there's some flaw in the logic somewhere, I will uncover it at some point. Let's see if I can figure it out here. So basically what I'm saying is, if the element of the array, which is now still 0, is not equal to the U-bound element, meeting time, so this would be 2, because there's 2 elements to that meeting times array. So it's not going to equal that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say meeting times, so we're going to start looking at that very first element, equals itself minus what I just said, the 60. You know, we're looking at that second column in the first element of the array, which gives us the time of the scheduled meeting. Okay. All right now. So now we're going to increase the task period again by 1, because now we are here in task 3. We've entered the 98, the scheduled meeting, the 60. We subtracted it. We got our 108. Even though this here is just for our own visual purposes, and I wish I could point at it or show you guys something. Basically, this column here. Let me see here if I could draw on it. Here we go. This column here. This is just basically, this isn't real. This is just for us to count. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to leave this little highlighter here. That's kind of cool. Hack. It's a hack that it's being used maybe for a purpose it wasn't intended. Okay. All right. So now, task number 3. Now, this is giving me a headache, guys. All right. Task number 3 here. We're going to enter that in our split time, because we should see that this is a 45 again. So we put our 66 and our 45 right here. So if we go down here, we're converting it to percentage, and we're subtracting that meeting time from it. So this is meeting times. We haven't increased the meeting time yet, so we're still looking at what remains, I believe, at this point. It works. We see this 480 here. This is going to have to be refactored, and that's going to have to be hard-coded. And then we add our task code, 45. And then we zero out meeting time. And then here we go again. So if it doesn't equal, so it's still 0, and this is still 1, then we're going to do this. We're looking at our next meeting time, and we're subtracting what we just put in here. So basically, like I said before, we're still counting down at 3 hours, basically getting to that 108 with this line of code here. And then finally, if it's less than, so 0 is less than 1, of course it is, then we're going to add 1 to it. And that's going to finally get us to our last element of that scheduled meeting time array. And now we're at 5 and 49. We're on task 4 here. It's a lot of explaining. All right, here we go. So back through this loop, of course, so if we're taking a look here, task 4 is a 49, so we're right here. All this happened, and we only went through 2 rows on our tasks. But we did a lot of heavy lifting there. We're not looking at these, and I don't remember saying that. So basically there's a do loop up here. There's an if statement that I'd never explained, and there's no other conditional to this if statement, basically, because I jumped right into comparing. And basically, it's saying if row B equals 0 equals nothing, there's nothing in row B, then go ahead and run these instructions. Otherwise, next row, nothing happens. And I forgot to mention that, guys, and that was that it wasn't necessarily that important. Basically, we're not getting to any of the loop. We're in a loop, but we're not running most of this code here in that first if statement. We're just increasing the row. So I hope that doesn't throw you guys off. If you're still with me, that's amazing, in all honesty. You might have to watch this a few times. You might have to do it. Otherwise, I mean, if you find it entertaining, you can answer the questions, because I don't know if I'm able to answer any. I probably could answer some questions about this, but yeah, my head is hurting. Here we go. I almost want to break this into 2 videos, but no, we're not going to do that. So now we're on task 4. Here we go. Task 4. So we're going to compare 5 to 42. I'm going to compare 5 to 42. I think I might have said 108 before. I was wrong. Now it's 42. And of course, that's just going to give us our more simplified thing, where we're just going to enter 5 and 49. Then we're going to compare 14 to 37. And we're going to keep on writing this. So 14 and 43. Now we're going to combine 23 and 23. And this is when we'll enter the 23 minutes. And I'm so glad that there's nothing left over here. And somehow this is working, because I'm a little hesitant about this. But 23, 23, There's not really a split here because we're done with 39. We go ahead, we'll be in that second part here where we were splitting. We go ahead and print that last task because we're all out of minutes here. The 3 hours has elapsed. 30 minutes, code 99, and then we finish out. We increment it again. We finish out, print 12 minutes, task code 39 in that final element of the array. Okay, let's run it. Now I want to save this. Let's run it. So let me get over here to the code. I won't be using this method here. We might talk about, I have to fix it. It's called write array to immediate window. I kind of have it here already. So I don't need it in the immediate window. It would be something that we could talk about later on. And I need to fix this code that I found online, but I had to modify it and it still doesn't work the way I want it to. I want to make it dynamic, so any array I throw to it, it's going to be able to write it to the immediate window. That's not where it's at right now. All right, let's get to, we are in the right module. Here's the monstrosity that I will be refactoring. You will see I'm not sure if I pointed out the duplication. One thing I do have here that I wanted to mention was this exit sub. All this code here is gone. Don't need it. I'm deleting it right now. Have no use for it whatsoever. Basically, exit sub allows you to kind of, I might have needed that code, and it kind of allows you to get out of the sub without deleting a lot of code underneath it. So you could practice running some things and still keep your old code just so you don't end up breaking something. I mean, that's how I find it useful. Don't need that either. There was one other thing I wanted to add here. I'm going to put that right here. I never declared the value of this. I never initialized it with a value of 0. Okay, so let's run it. So I'm going to hit F8. F8, we're selecting the sheet, loading those meeting times. I'm not going to explain loading meeting times. If I would have been back to the tasks. So we're counting our tasks. We see we have 2 tasks here. Task count equals 1 now. We're going to set this to 1, 2 meeting times. As you can see, I threw in the B array. Now, I initially thought I threw in a different. Remember, I kind of made it a little dynamic, so it basically just looked at this. And I subtracted the 1, so we only need the 2 elements because all we're looking at is 11 and 12, and it's basically these 3 columns in that meeting times array. So we have 11 a.m., so to speak. We have the minutes until 11 a.m., I should say. We're going to see this will give us 60, and this will give us the task code 98 in that 3rd column. And then we're going to have the minutes until 2 p.m., and I hope this is making sense, and then maybe if you rewatch it, things will make more sense for you again. So we have 2 p.m., the minutes till 2 p.m. We're going to have 30 minutes here, and then the task code 99, and that's kind of what you see up here. And then 5 hours is 300 minutes minus 30 because you have to subtract the break, and that's what I came up with as I ran various models and realized, okay, well, something's not adding up here, and then it was like, okay, that's why. I'm counting down 5 hours, but there's a break in there that I've taken, and that's a part of the 5 hours. So that has to be taken out because I'm actually counting the minutes I'm working. I'll make up that 30 minutes later on. Okay, all right, here we go. And part of the thing is that when we count minutes worked, we are subtracting the breaks that we're taking out of it. So everything kind of has to balance out here too. Back to the code. Sorry for the segue, for the digression. All right, so now we redimmed that. I'm wondering if we're going to load the meeting times. Yeah, that's what we're doing here. We're loading the meeting times. Okay. We kind of went through this the last. Sorry guys, I want to get back to get total breaks before meeting. This is another part of the code. Hopefully I've gone through. Basically it's calculating that we're going to have 12 breaks before that particular meeting. And okay, that's a part of that subroutine. All right, and hopefully we are okay. We're back to where we wanted to be. I'm sorry, I should have put a stop right here. We should have picked up from here. So basically, we're going to pass it in. I'm going to put a stop here. We're just going to hit play. All right, so we see our task count equals 8. Row count equals 14. We're going to make this 8 rows, 2 columns. Redeem the task period array, 8 rows, 2 columns. If you can see it down here. And then we're going to set the task period. We're going to set that index for our array back to 0. And I could actually have reused task count here and then gone ahead and reused it. Maybe that's something I might do. And we're going to set our counter for our meeting array to 0 as well, like I said. And I just wrote that just a few minutes ago, not even a minute ago. Okay, so here's that very first do loop. Here's that first if statement that I said, and I accidentally skipped it. But basically this is saying, is there a break? Is this a scheduled time? Because we don't need to count that scheduled time because we already have that counted in load meeting times here. That's in a separate array, and we're just putting the 2 arrays. We're making one array by using information from another array. Some information from the other array. We're using information from the spreadsheet, calculations that we have programmed, and information from the other array to create the meeting time. Okay. How many minutes are we at here? 27 minutes. Did not expect that at all. Okay, let's go here. All right, so like I said, pretty much went through all this. Yeah, I'm getting tired, guys. So I just kind of want to show you guys. So let me see here. Here's our very first element in the array, 168, 41. See if we got 2. Sorry, we missed the first 2 elements. That's kind of what I wanted to show you guys, 102 and 45. All right, let's I think we're about to hit, let me see. I don't think we have our third element yet. No, not yet. Here we go. So the third element, 60 and 98. Let's take a look here, 60, 98. All right, let's get back to the code here. And the U-bound equals 1. So do we have, no, not yet. So we're working on that 4th element, which will be 5 and 49. So we're probably, this is just basically administrative stuff, so to speak, or cleanup stuff. No, 66, 45, okay. Sorry about that, guys. It is element 3. 66 and 45. My eyes are starting to get tired. All right, let's go here. Let's go. And this is going to be our 4th element, 5 and 49. Here we go. Back here. 5, 49. And then, like I said, we're just going to keep on going into that very first part. If you guys watched it, we just skipped over the 99, 98, or where we had the 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. task times. Now we're going to drop in again, and we're going to see our next elements here, 14 and 43. So 5 and 49, 14, 43. Next one should be 23, 39. Let's get that up here so we can see it live as it happens. Here we go, 23, 39. And then we're going to see real quickly 30, and 99. All right, and then we're going to see our very last element here, 12 and 39, and then we are out. And then this is just basically that function I said, write array to immediate window. And that's kind of how I was looking at it before I said, hey, why don't I just use a snipping tool? Sometimes you just have to kind of think around the box. Hopefully you guys could have heard me that whole time. If you've stuck with me this whole time, I really got to give you a thumbs up. I wish I could give you a like. But that's it. That's a lot of heavy lifting right there. This is the part of the project that has sunk me so far with developing this. So now that we're past that, I'm going to get to start writing or start printing out sometimes, comparing the break times to the task times, because we have the break array, the task array. We're going to compare the two of them, and based upon that, we'll start printing out start and end times, and then we'll be able to print out the schedule. So that's what we're going to pick up with next time. Until then, take it easy. Thank you so much for watching and hanging in there this whole time. Have a good one.